1. This is another one of those stories where, if it had happened any time recently, I would have handled it a lot differently. But of course, hindsight is 20/20, and everything turned out okay in the end. So, it was about 10 years ago, when I was 17, and just starting a summer job at the Jersey Shore. On my first day, one of my co-workers, 25-ish, was hitting on me. But it wasn't anything excessively creepy, just annoying. I just figured I'd have to do my best to avoid or ignore him in the future. Other than that, the day goes smoothly and I go home. Now, as a bit of background, our summer house was a split level, meaning that one family lived on the first, ground floor, of the house, and we lived on the second. It was a normal-looking house, though, and you wouldn't be able to tell that by looking at it. The only way to get to our part of the house was via steps leading up to the deck outside our only entrance. For some reason, I happened to be staying by myself that night. My other family members were out of town for whatever reason. So I'm outside on the deck when I see the skeezy co-worker pull up outside my house. I have no idea how he found out my address. He never asked me for it, and I certainly never gave it to him. I wasn't overly alarmed. This was pre-cell phone days and in a vacation town, so it wasn't uncommon for friends or neighbors, etc., to just stop by with no notice. However, I didn't feel like dealing with him, so I go inside before he can see me, not even taking the time to lock the door. Our house also had big picture windows, so everything is visible in the main living area of the house. So I head down the hallway. For some reason, I decide to go into the bathroom instead of my bedroom, which ends up being lucky. My bedroom didn't have a lock, but the bathroom did. I am in the locked bathroom, waiting to hear if he's... I'll start calling him Chris. I don't remember his real name anymore. Going to knock. But instead I hear him come straight up the deck stairs. He must have seen me. I don't know why he wouldn't go to the main front door and open the door, which I remember I hadn't locked, and come inside the house without even knocking. I could hear him walking around calling my name out. He even tried the handle on the bathroom. Thank God I had locked it. He eventually leaves. But this was only the beginning. Now at this point, of course, I should have called the cops. Someone essentially just broke into my house. But I was young and dumb, and scared of the consequences at work. I didn't want to be that girl who called the cops on her co-worker after her first day, when he was just trying to be friendly or something. Again, if this happened today, I wouldn't have let it escalate the way it did. But such is the case with many of these stories. Now the phone calls start. Again, I didn't give him my number. I'm assuming he got the info from work somehow. I didn't answer the phone, nor did I take it off the hook, because I thought that might give him a sign that I was home. He called over 30 times that night, and left 11 messages, I counted. The messages he left on the machine were so creepy. It would just be silence and then him saying my name. Daisy, Daisy, are you there? Are you there, Daisy? Daisy, are you there? Every time, over and over. My name isn't actually Daisy. I saved the messages in case I need them as proof of anything. At this point I had locked the door and closed all the blinds except the front door, didn't have one, so I put a towel over it. And the phone calls keep coming, and he comes back to the house 3 more times. I can hear him trying the door downstairs, throwing pebbles at the window circling the house. Again, should have called the cops, but part of me thought that he was just really socially awkward, and didn't realize what he was doing was way over the line. But I didn't want to confront him, regardless of whether his intentions were to rape or murder me. I did eventually call my mom, and she could hear the fear in my voice, and ended up driving 2 hours to come rescue me. But in the meantime I was still dealing with his phone calls and attempts to get in the house. I was afraid to leave the house and go to a friend's, because I thought he would be waiting outside. Again, only one way in and out of our part of the house. Eventually, I hear more footsteps on the deck again, and I'm pretty much in tears at this point. I'm so scared. Luckily, it ends up being two friends of mine who were just randomly stopping by. I have never been so happy to see them in my life. We quickly go to their car and I end up spending the night at their house. The next morning, my mom and I go to the police station to file a report. I was afraid he was going to come back. What's creepy was that when I told the cops his name, they were all, "Oh yeah, we know that guy." I was supposed to go to work that morning. My mom went with me and we told my manager what happened the night before. To his credit, he said, "We don't need people like that working here," and immediately found Chris and fired him. I didn't tell everyone my story, but word got around, and everyone at work was really supportive. Luckily, nothing further happened after that, but what bothered me about the whole thing was that for a long time it made me afraid to be alone, and I flinched every time the phone rang. But in a way, it's also given me confidence enough to not let myself get in a situation like that again, and also not hesitate to call the cops. 2. Back in my late teens in Dublin, Ireland, I used to head to a particular nightclub every single week and got to know most of the regulars there, to the point that I could sit at any table and know at least a few people. One night I was introduced to a new woman that no one really knew very well, and I said hello, made very short, polite conversation, and then went about my normal dancing and drinking. Nothing much of note happened during my time in the club. At the end of the night, I left a little earlier than my friends because I lived really far away outside the city. I got a taxi home, expensive, and got into bed, falling into a deep sleep. I woke up in the morning, sunlight streaming into the room, and immediately knew something was wrong. Too much weight on the bed. I spun and looked down to the end of the room, and there sat on the end of the bed was the woman from the night before, staring at me wide-eyed, with utter devotion and a weird smile. It was totally fucking horrible. I had no idea what to say, so I said nothing. I was so weirded out by her expression, and the whole bizarre nature of the situation, I was dumbstruck. It wasn't a lustful look. It was spooky, obsessive, insane looking. I know for a lot of guys the idea of having some random woman appear in their bedroom might be a thrill, but this was nothing like that. It was scary, plain and simple. I got up, got dressed, summoned up a bit of courage, turned to her and said, "You're leaving, now," and essentially marched her out of the house, telling her that the buses leave from the end of the road every half hour. She left without saying anything. From talking to friends and family, I pieced together what happened. After I left the nightclub, she had tried to catch up to me but instead had lost me. She went back, asked around until someone told her the rough area I lived in, got a taxi there, knocked on random doors, waking up neighbors, and eventually one told her exactly where I lived, and then lied to my sister saying that I had been expecting her. My sister was pissed off at being woke up, but let her in. From there she got to my room and sat there for God knows how long, silently watching me. As it turns out, almost nobody from the club knew her at all, but we all assumed someone else must know her. What really spooks me is that if she had wanted to hurt me for whatever reason, she easily found her way right into my family house, right into my bedroom. I'm shuddering thinking of it. 3. I broke up with an abusive ex 4 years ago. Since then, he hasn't stopped posting about me. I know this sounds arrogant, And you're probably thinking it's just vague posts that I'm interpreting a certain way because I'm a narcissist. But let me say my piece. The people I've reached out to thus far were skeptical at first, until I showed them the posts, and are now suggesting a restraining order. I met Joseph when I was 16. He was 22 at the time, my best friend's older brother. We started dating, and being young and dumb, I missed many glaring red flags, trying to talk me out of going to a summer school program that would provide full tuition to my top choice university, because I'd be away for 2 months and I would fuck up college anyway. Never letting me hang out with my friends, trying to convince me that everyone around me was a bad influence. I wasn't even allowed to go to my graduation party because he, like always, was afraid I'd cheat on him. Instead, he took me to Chili's and tried to talk me out of going to college, all the while calling me a dumb whore. You get the idea. He was a deeply insecure man. Needless to say, our relationship didn't survive college. During my first semester, he demanded that I text him every 30 minutes, and would call to yell at me if I didn't. I had to call him as soon as I was back in my dorm for the day, and stay on the phone with him until he went to bed, often causing me to stay up obscenely late to get my homework done. He came to visit twice, when my roommate was gone. Campus was close to many venues, so I bought us tickets to see WWE Live and the Lumineers. He still complained the whole time about how awful the city was. Later he asked that I give him $70 for tickets to go see Brand New in New York. We live in a southern state, by the way, and him getting the $35 in gas it took to come visit me was expensive for him. I told him no, because I was broke, which was true, since he wouldn't let me get a job. I had used care basket money from my parents to buy him the other tickets. He said I was a stupid bitch who didn't care about him. I decided then that I would leave at the next opportunity. So I waited until a day when he was in a good mood to call and tell him it was over. Surprisingly, he was calm, said it was okay, that I was allowed to leave under the condition that neither of us date for a month and stay in contact with each other during that time. I agreed, because I was tired and just wanted this to be over. I realized it was stupid to let some crazy asshole who lived 3 hours away control me, though, and immediately began trying to hook up with someone. I began flirting with a guy I was in a student organization with. It ended up not going anywhere because I was obviously shaken up and had no confidence. I didn't try to hide that I was interested in him, commenting sweet things on his Facebook posts and tagging him in memes. You know, flirting. I knew it was a bad idea, because Joseph would notice and start a fight. On some level, I wanted him to see he was helpless to do anything about it and couldn't control me anymore. He did, and started freaking out, saying I violated our agreement, and it's like our relationship never even mattered to me. He started stalking the guy's Facebook page, asking me all the details about him, saying he'd come up here and kill him. I gave a half-hearted apology, left the other guy alone, and laid low until the month was up. I finally sent Joseph a message saying I'd complied with his request and to never contact me again. Well, I guess whatever his plan was during that month didn't work out, because he threatened to come to my city and murder me. He said he'd burn my university to the ground and beat me to death. He'd physically threatened me before for wanting to go out, but not to this level. I didn't know what to do, so I blocked his number and all of his social media. I was too scared to actually go to the police, so instead I told people back home that I'd reported him and given all the threatening messages he said to the cops, so that they'd have it just in case something happened. I knew they would tell him, and hoped it would be enough of a deterrent since he was terrified of cops. It seemed to work, and everything was cool for a year or so. I went to therapy for complex post-traumatic stress disorder, got a job, was living on my own and generally enjoying the college experience. I was still terrified that he would show up. and was hyper-vigilant about looking for his car or his friends when going out. But eventually let people talk me into not worrying about it so much. My therapist was adamant about not checking his social media, which I agreed to. Another year passes. I began getting some strange friend requests on Facebook. One from Joseph's sister's ex-boyfriend, another from his aunt, another from some random girl currently attending our high school. I deleted and blocked all of them, figuring that he was stupidly trying to see my profile. I decided to make a fake Facebook, to see if he'd been posting anything indicating plans to come to my city. Mostly generic, "I am so lonely and I hate being single" stuff, in addition to some posts talking about how controlling I was, but nothing alarming. Posts from his friends closer to the breakup making fun of my hair, going to college, being a slut, whatever. Aggravating but not dangerous. Then I found his Tumblr, which was a lot worse. Lots of stuff spanning the last 2 years about feminazis, how all women are bitches, women who go out and party deserve to be raped and killed. All this crazy shit. Feminism was a big point of contention when we dated, so I am not sure if he was hoping that I specifically would see that, or if his misogynist views just multiplied after the breakup. Some things that I knew were directly about me, posting, "I still listen to all your favorite songs," on my birthday, which was a few months prior. A long post talking about how he was an abusive asshole in his last relationship, and he was trying to improve, and many lyrics from the mixtapes he'd make me tagged with hashtag or hashtag why am I like this. I'm real freaked out now and show my roommate, and someone from freshman year. She tells me not to worry about him and to not look at his posts anymore. Boyfriend says the same thing. Both mention that even if he wanted to come and get me, he is too broke to actually do anything. They both say I shouldn't be concerned with this loser, and I shouldn't look at his posts. I let it go, and resume ignoring him. 2 more years pass. I would occasionally get a friend request from someone associated with him, which I delete and block. My fiancé and close friends would get some too. I told them to do the same. I created an Instagram and had to make it private, because his friends and some fake accounts I suspect to be associated with him began following me. I got weird messages from empty accounts asking for my address or to meet up somewhere. Bizarre, but at least they stopped. Around May of this year, I began to get worried again. It was close to graduation, and if he wanted to make good on his threats, it was now or never. I got married in April and was scared that he would try something then. But it was a low-key affair, just the courthouse, and the details of which were not public. Graduation, however, was taking place downtown in the convention center, so all of the information was online for anyone to see. A week before the ceremony, I get a message on Facebook from one of my high school friends. She said, "Joseph just wrote a song about you," with a link. I thought maybe she was just reading between the lines of some vague emo lyrics, but I logged onto my fake account to listen. There's no way they're not about me. They reference specific things from my Facebook profile, such as, "Bought yourself a car for graduation." I recently bought a car with my husband. Being married now and moving to a fancy apartment. We just upgraded to a new place since the old one flooded. It's interspersed with verses describing things we used to do together, driving on backgrounds, smoking cigars. I was deeply unsettled but unsure of what to do. I messaged my only other contact in that area to ask if he'd heard anything, and he said he doesn't talk to that group anymore, but doubts Joseph would ever have the balls or the capability to do something. The next day I went back to listen to the song again for clues or something, but it was deleted. He uploaded a new one, with lyrics that were more vague, discussing making love on the couch, but not much else specific. I kept monitoring his profile, and a few days later, Joseph posted a picture of an empty street at night with no caption. I drove myself nuts trying to figure out if it was located in my city or not, but was never able to figure it out. I thought about just not going to graduation, but I'm first generation and my parents would be super disappointed. I decided to chance it, since the arena had security guards and you had to go through a metal detector to get in. I ran through emergency situations a million times in my head, just like when we first broke up, and I began to worry about him coming to find me. The whole morning I was anxious. I wasn't able to enjoy the ceremony as much as I'd like to have, dull as it was. My family was pissed off that I was so distant and not in the best mood on the big day. But I knew they'd say I was being irrational if I told them I was nervous. Regardless, the day came and went, nothing happened. It's been a month now and I have no friend requests, no weird posts from him, nothing. I deleted my old Facebook and made a new one that doesn't use my real name or pictures, just so I can remain in contact with my support network. I am aggravated that I'm back to where I feel the need to constantly check his profile to see if he's planning anything, thereby making me the creepy one. Maybe that's what he wanted all along, to stress me out and make me look crazy. I'm not sure what to do from here. It's been 4 years despite his posts. They've only amounted to internet shade, nothing physical. I'm questioning my own judgment and I'm not sure if I have the right to be scared or not. I don't know how he got access to what I'm posting on Facebook, and I'm worried that one of my 2 friends from high school was feeding him information. I feel crazy and irrational. It's hard to enjoy all the positive changes in my life, because I'm so on guard about being spied on. I guess in that regard he wins. Edit. I appreciate all the positive comments. I'm headed back to therapy soon. I have pepper spray, and like many of you have said, I'm going to try and live my life. It's not fair that I would be robbed of that because of some loser. Thank you all. Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 Truth Scary Stories, episode 225. Big thanks to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Especially those of you who I may have confused with messages contacting you about 40 years after you posted the things. Making an early start on my videos this week for the weekend, I've worked out I need to record 10 videos worth, well basically I need to make 10 videos over the next few days, so that'll be, let's see, we're going into Friday, so it's Friday, Saturday, so I've got 3 days to make 10 videos. This is actually late Thursday or very early Friday morning, depending how you want to look at it. So I'm getting a start on those, and that's what my weekend will be dedicated to. And I know I can do it, because given that I usually make 3 videos on the Friday, so I can have my weekend to myself, I'll just basically be dedicating the next few days to doing videos, and then I'll get my lovely time off. Okay, and with that I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.